Hello, I'm Carla. I have Liz joining me today, as well as Onyx and Diesel. And today's tutorial is on Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Urdhva means upward, Mukha is face, Svana is a dog. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana is the upward facing dog position. The upward facing dog position is done primarily from the floor, but oftentimes also done from downward facing dog. So we're going to come to lie on our abdomen. When you're doing a back bend, it's important to make sure that you extend the legs so you can lift one leg at a time to get this openness in the front groin. You also want to make sure in the back bend that you keep descending the buttocks towards the heels. Don't let the buttocks come up to the back waist. Get that length in the spine. And also at the back thigh, just a release from the inner thigh to the outer thigh, so you're not gripping into the buttocks. If you allow that release, you can allow space in the sacrum. As a beginner, you might not want to do the classic pose where your feet are together. The classic pose, the feet are together. But if you have any issues with your back, your sacrum, as a beginner, take the feet hip distance apart. Much easier way to do the pose. In Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, you want to get the hands in line with the rib cage. So bringing the hands back in line with the rib cage, keeping them close to the body, spread the hands, and then you're going to come up on an inhalation. So exhale, get that grip in the hands, inhale, lift the chest. As you breathe in, you push against the hands, you lift the chest. The thighs and the knees come off the floor so that there's a movement of the pelvis up and the buttock flesh down. You're going to keep pushing the floor away from you. Keep breathing. The tendency is to hold the breath in these poses, breathe. If it's within your practice to do so, you can look up and that completes your Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. When you're ready to come down, you can come down slowly, place the knees on the floor, thighs on the floor, bend your arms, and if you release slowly, it develops upper body strength, and you can sort of begin to prepare for Chaturanga Dandasana, the push-up. There's many ways of doing Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. If you're a beginner and you really struggle to get that lift up off the floor, a nice prop is to have some bricks for the hand. As you lie down, you can move the brick back a bit so that your fingers are off the front. And then on an exhalation, prepare yourself as you push off, breathe in to lift the chest. That inhalation helps you to find buoyancy in the chest. You do want to, especially when you've got space, to drag the hips towards the hands, open up across the collarbones, broaden across the collarbones, lift the chest, breathe. If you can look up, you do. When you've held it for a few breaths, exhale, release down, and have a rest. A lovely way of releasing is to come back to Adho Mukha Virasana, toes together, the knees apart. Rest your arms so that the shoulders and the collarbones and the neck can rest. And here, as the buttocks release down, there's a nice release in the back. If the bricks are not sufficient height for you, you can also use a chair. So coming to the chair, so stand in front of the chair, you're going to place your hands on either side of the chair, and then you'll come into it by taking your feet back. You can stay with the toes turned under and bring the hips towards the chair. Much easier way of doing it for beginners. You don't have to turn your toes for this one. When you've been there for a few breaths, simply push yourself away from the chair into a little bit of a forward bend to release the back. If the chair, so these chairs are most chairs are quite standard and not very wide. If you're quite broad-shouldered like I am, I've got a nice piece of plank, just has a little bit of non-sticky or sticky mat on it. And this way, especially if you're a guy and you have a little bit of, you need space, taking the hands onto a plank is a really nice way of working with the chair and giving you that space that you need to lift and open the chest. So that is Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, upward facing dog. All of those are kind of done from the floor. Now we're going to come to Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. From Adho Mukha Svanasana, When you go forward, as a beginner, the first one, keep the heels up. Don't turn the feet. Swing forward, keep the hips up, keep the thighs off the floor, lift your chest, legs are strong, breathe. And this is Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, the easy way. At any point when you need to release, press into the hands, shoot the buttocks up and back, rest in Adho Mukha Svanasana. We're going to come back to Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So swing forward, inhale as you lift the chest to upward facing dog. Now you want to flip your feet. So just flip them over, keep the knees and the thighs off the floor, keep pushing into the hands. That length in the lumbar spine is important. And once again, when you've been there for a few breaths, roll over the feet or flip the feet. From downward facing dog, you can take your knees to the floor, knees apart, toes together. And if you release in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana for a moment, just to catch your breath. You can repeat these back bends as often as possible. They will really help to develop strength and flexibility of the back body. At all times, though, be careful that you are breathing and pay attention to what your body feels. In the classic Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, when you're coming from downward facing dog, so if you have a look at the action of the feet, when you come into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, you roll over the tops of the feet to get to the upper foot, and then you roll over the feet to get to downward facing dog. So you do need a little bit of courage just to get onto the toes. You can practice this from this all four position. Extend your leg, roll over the toes, roll back, just to get mobility in the toes. It's actually very good to do so that the toes don't kind of become all stuck and cramped and buniony. So thanks for joining us. Keep practicing back bends. They are a wonderful group of poses, and we'll see you next time.